Time to call to order the June Elizabethton Board of Education meeting to order. At this time, we will have our moment of silence and pledge the flag, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Van Huss.
Thank you. Please stand. Please pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, it's time to approve the consent agenda and regular agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
And a second? Okay, any items need to be adjusted or moved? Any questions about anything? Obviously, it's a long agenda. It's that time of year. So again, the items to approve consent agenda and regular agenda, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And there are none. It's now time for citizens to speak. We had no one request to speak, so we will move on to our special recognition, and I'll again hand that off to Mr. Van Huss, or Mr. Minton going to take care of that?
Yeah, so
All
we'll just keep the middleman out of that.
All
so.
right.
Well, good afternoon, evening. Tonight we want to recognize our athletic director, or athletic director soon to be not so much anymore, as of July 1st, Forrest Holt. And Forrest, you want to come on up here? Forrest was recognized in the spring semester this year as the A.F. Bridges Athletic Director of the Year for the first district in TWSAA. TWSAA has 9 districts. I'm used to speaking in 8s and 16s, it feels like, with athletics and even academics. But there are 9 districts, and there are a total of 55 schools in our District 1. And Keith Turner, who is on the Legislative Council, emailed us and as a congratulations to Coach Holt. And the A.F. Bridges Award, both to schools, to student athletes, to principals, athletic directors. There's a series of awards that go out and are really centered on the focus is leaders who have done the right thing and displayed exceptional character throughout their leadership. And so when it was voted on, Coach Holt came to mind. And so I can say that during my 5 years at the high school working with Coach Holt, he has showed tremendous amount of leadership through our athletic programs. He has put Elizabethton first in everything that he does. He's always taken an initiative to make sure that that the student and the athlete go together. And that's important when you talk about student athletes. Athletics is very important in Elizabethton. We take a lot of pride, and everybody knows that. But the student part and the academic part is also a big focus, and he always found a great way to balance those things. Experienced a lot of success. He hung his whistle up and became a leader, but traveled to a lot of state championships and a lot of state championship events. We got a chance to experience those together, and it's been a really special time being able to do that over the last 5 years. We're going to get to see Coach Holt hang around and put his whistle back on and go back into the classroom. So we're still going to get a chance to benefit from his leadership and his experience. And so most of all, he's shown a ton of support for our athletic programs, watched them grow, started some new things, and really taken it and left it better than he found it. And so I just want to say congratulations to Coach Holt. And Forrest, if you got anything to say, I just want to say thank you, man. Appreciate everything.
Thank you, brother.
Well, one of the big reasons I was able to, do well in my role as athletic director is just a tremendous backing and support from everyone in this community. And our principal, Dr. Minton, has been every step of the way right there behind my back, supporting me in every way. So I just can't thank you enough. You're the best principal I've ever worked for, and I mean it. So thank you. And each of the school board members here and Mr. Van Huss, anything we've ever asked for, ever needed to operate and to help our students succeed, you guys have not hesitated to just do whatever it took, and I appreciate it. So I'm honored to receive this award from TSSAA, but I also consider it a reflection of everybody around me and all the hard work everyone else does. So I just thank each and every one of you. And I want to thank my family for their support as well. Sometimes this job is not easy, and so I have a solid foundation at home to support me, and I'm thankful for that. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Coach Holt. We appreciate all that you've done for us and look forward to, the new role that you're going to be in. But again, just thank you so much. We had a chance to have lunch together today and just had a chance to tell him how much I appreciate all he's done for athletics and the school there at Elizabethton. So thank you.
Thank you.
And again, if you want to stay and support the rest of the meeting,
Where y'all going?
but we understand why you're here. So thank you again for being here. Thank you all. Thank you, Coach. Now it's time to move on to the director's report. So again, I'll turn it over to Mr. Van Huis.
Thank you. I'll be brief in my comments because, as you mentioned, the agenda is long today, but just a quick update on a few capital projects across the district. Work continues at Harold McCormick, the hallway, and finishing up one additional classroom. That work has really picked up steam this summer, and it already looks like a different place. So it looks like that's on pace, again, to be completed before the start of the school year. So we appreciate the board's support in making that project a reality as well. The Dave Ryder Center for Athletic Performance, if you drive down there right now, you're going to say, well, not much has happened other than the dirt pile where we did the groundbreaking has just, the water has kind of shrunk that down back almost to ground level. But you'll see lots of activity there in the next few days. We had some things to finish up with the State Fire Marshal's office as well as getting permits from the city, but that's going well. And so within the next week and a half, you'll see some progress. They met today with Mr. Burrow to talk about some logistics, where they're going to place their work trailer and some things like that. So you'll see site work going on there picking up steam here in the next few days. The CDEC, the old Union Pharmacy building, obviously there's an item on here, the consent agenda, that will allow us to move forward with finishing that work as well. We're hoping to do the majority of that work ourselves with our staff, and so we're just finalizing some things there to get that up and going here in the next few days. Again, our goal is to have that up and running and set up ready to go by the first day of school. Ballistic film installation continues to go well. All of the film itself, I think, is up at every school. They still need to come around and put the caulking around the edges, which kind of solidifies and makes the whole system function as it should. So that's still moving forward. Interior door locks and card readers, that installation is wrapping up at the high school. A few things to do there. They're going to be moving on next to T.A. Duggar. And again, that's on pace as well to be completed before school starts. Another really significant upgrade in security for our students and staff. There's also an item on there for you to consider today, and we'll talk a little bit more about that will expand that project a bit and give us some additional supplies should we have a unit that fails that may be out of warranty at that point. So we'll talk more about that one soon. They finished up retiling the cafeteria floor at T.A. Duggar. And I just want to tell you, it matches the same tile that's in the new entryway, and it looks fantastic. It looks like a different space with that new tile. So if you get a chance, if you're out this summer, swing by there. But it looks like a different place. They'll also be starting very soon on that same type tile throughout the entire first floor at T.A. Duggar. So, Ms. Wilson, if you remember when you approved that item a couple of months ago, we weren't sure we'd be able to have the money to do that, but Ms. Wilson has been able to scrape together some pennies to make that project happen, and Mr. Berry's very excited about that. So it's going to change the look of that building tremendously in a positive way. Just a note, in your information packet there on the consent agenda, you approved the 24-25 board meeting calendar, and I just wanted to point out, and we'll talk about it later as well, but the only real change is next month's meeting, which will occur on Tuesday, July 16th, as opposed to Thursday, July 18th. And in the past, that's always the date that we travel down for the summer workshop in Gatlinburg, so thought it may be easier. That's always been a logistical problem, trying to finish the meeting and get down there, so we'll just move that one. Thank you for moving that one to Tuesday, and that'll give us plenty of time to get down there Thursday night for that conference, which will start on Friday morning. We're busy closing out the 23-24 school year, as well as looking forward, and preparations have already begun, obviously, for the startup of the 24-25 school year. Just wanted to give you a couple of items to mark on your calendar. Obviously, August 1st, that's the first day that teachers will report. That's on a Wednesday. And we will have an opening in-service program at Elizabethton High School. We will serve lunch that day and then have a program down in the gym. So please mark that on your calendar. We'd love for you to be there and start. That's always an exciting time. You know, teachers dread that start, but kind of once you get there, it's great to see everyone, and it's a great opportunity to get us off and running in the right direction. Also, the Monday before that, July 29th, will be the Back to School Bash, again inside at the high school. Well, the majority of it will be inside, but that will be from 6 to 8 o'clock. We would love for you to come, volunteer for a station, or just walk around and talk with people. We really hope that you can join us for that as well. You may have noticed, read in the paper or seen on the news that the state released TCAP data for ELA 3rd and 4th grade. And I just wanted to give you information on what our scores are. Based on our calculations, for 3rd grade ELA, 50% of our students were either met expectations or exceeded expectations. So that means 50% passed. Also in 4th grade, we had a 64% rate, which we're very, very proud of both of those. You know, you can look at those, how that looks within the region, but very, very proud. That is a direct reflection on all the hard work of the entire staffs at all of our schools, as well as our students and our families putting the time in. It was a difficult year trying to implement all of the pieces that go along with retention, and people worried about that, but as always, there's work to do, but we're very, very excited about the progress that was made this year, and we'll continue to do things in this coming year that we anticipate will drive those scores even higher. So thanks to all that made that a possibility. Summer school will be wrapping up tomorrow. That will be the last day. It's another successful year for that, and so again, just thanks to all the individuals on the planning side of that, as well as just carrying that on and working with our students. So again, it's been a great summer so far. Lots of people out of town getting their vacations in at this time, but as you know, once July 4th gets here and passes, it seems like we're ready to start. So that's just really 2 weeks away. So thank you again for all your support, and that's my report.
All right. Thank you. It's now time for board member reports. I don't know anybody has been to conferences or anywhere. Anybody have anything they need or would like to report?
I'd like to say, I was talking to some children last night that are attending summer school, and they're sad that it's over. So that may.
Isn't that a great thing?
A great statement for the teachers, the faculty that carried on. I mean, they didn't get how many days off, they had to start right back.
Oh
to
yeah,
teaching.
right back in within a week.
And still kept the attitude that they were there to learn, so they were really sad, but they had a great time. So.
Absolutely, and again, that goes into that planning where they've tried to find activities that will keep the students engaged, and so that's great. That's great feedback. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jamie, anybody else? All right, then we'll move on to Mr. Simmerly, our City Council Liaison Report. Mr. Mike, you got anything? All right. All right.
Start with the question first, and Richard, we may have already done this, but on our Back to School Bash, have we got Lions Club and everyone signed up already, or do you know?
Yes, we're in the process of collecting all that information,
Okay.
and it's my understanding that there are still going to be a vendor. Do we have them down this year, Lions Club? Okay, and I know that was great. There was
Yeah, oh, yeah.
great response from, I mean, I think you were there with Lions
Right,
Club
and
last
you know,
month.
we've got the machine now too for the
Yes.
vision
Yes.
screen as well. So
Yeah.
that was one. And I
Yeah.
think Keep Carter County Beautiful, I know that I've got a board meeting next week with them. I just want to make sure to remind them, but I think
Gotcha.
we've already signed up on that. Okay, that was just a couple of questions on that. And also just to let you know, and I think everyone's probably already seen it in the paper, but we did have our second reading this past couple of weeks ago on the city council, and our budgets are approved, meaning our funding that we gave this year to school board, the incremental funding that we gave, it would help the project. So we're so proud of that and appreciate all that you do as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Thank
questions
you.
for city?
Well, we really do appreciate there's good things going on, and y'all are such a huge part.
It's
of that.
it's called teamwork,
It
and
is.
it's all you guys working together, and it's all of us working together, and that's just what makes it work. We're so proud of it.
Thank you.
Proud of our children.
All right. Yes,
Thank you.
we are. Thank you. And then student liaison, we'll have, our student liaison will be here either next month or August. So we look forward to having him with us. And I know he's got big shoes to fill, but we'll look forward to hearing from him. It's now time to move on to the regular agenda. First item on the agenda is to approve consideration and action regarding the contract between Elizabethton City Schools Board of Education and Director of Schools Richard Van Huss. So, I guess we need to have discussion first. So I sent out an email with a copy of a contract as it's written to be updated. So really, we have three options as a board. Currently, the contract would end June 30th of 2026. We can't go more than a 4-year contract, so we have the option of leaving it as it is, or we can dissolve that and start a new contract and have it a 3-year length, or we can dissolve it and we can extend it to a 4, which would be the maximum. So, just want to know, anybody have any comments or questions before we would entertain a motion to move on that?
Well, can we not make a motion to extend it for 4 years?
Yeah, probably more than the wording of an extension, we would terminate the contract that's in existence right now as of June 30th, and then we can start a new contract. I will tell you that in the contract there is no new verbiage in it. So there's not like Mr. Van Huss hasn't asked for anything else. I think it's kind of the way they're structured is to stay the same. The salary would be adjusted only if teachers were adjusted. And so it is the exact same contract. We really are dealing with just the length of it. Okay? So comments or questions before we entertain a motion? We would need one of those three. All right? Anybody like to make a motion on that?
I make the motion that we go the route of a 4-year, but that's assuming that he's going to continue to do the good job he's doing. If he lets us down at that point, he's had it.
Yeah. We're going to talk about his evaluation right after
That
this.
sounds good. We better do that first.
Yeah, we can't by law, or we would. So, all right, so a motion that it be a 4-year, and we have a second from Jamie. Any discussion or anything like that? Okay. All right, the motion is to dissolve the contract as of June 30th, 2024, and July 1, 2024, we would enter into a new contract with the same verbiage. That would be 4 years in length. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And there are none. All right. Congratulations on that. And we will look at the evaluation, but we do appreciate that. We're looking forward to 4 more. All right? So thank you. As far as the second item is the Director of Schools evaluation results, just to kind of let you know, it is an extensive evaluation. with a score of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest. And I will say that the overall score was pushing that 5 mark. And we're realists. We know that no one's perfect, but we do know that the job that's being done is extremely well done. And for that, we are thankful. There are areas that we'll talk about, areas to look into to try to push things up to that 5. But overall, we are extremely pleased as the result of the evaluation shows. Obviously, strength in relationships, especially community relationships, staff and personnel. Our relationship was 2 of the strongest, as well as facilities, finance, and human resources, which is essentially the job in a lot of ways. So made a lot of success, a lot of strides during Mr. Van Huss's tenure. So again, that will be submitted for the board record to have, and it's there for anyone to see. So any comments or questions about Mr. Van Huss? Anything you'd like to have written on the evaluation that you just hit you and you're ready to share? The best thing I say, if you were a motel in Gatlinburg, you'd be about a 4.8, which means, well, I would consider staying there.
Wow.
So, yes, no bed bugs, so we're good.
Thank you, I think.
Yes. All right. Anybody, anything?
I think he's doing a great job. He's,
I do too.
he welcomed me
We
in.
expect you to continue.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Don't
Pressure.
slack.
We all know, and I'd hesitate to say this, but we all know things have really been good here. Serving on the board is an honor and a privilege, and we know that things can come up at any time, but we appreciate the smoothness of what you're doing, and we just appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you all, and I want to do a great job, and I know that I'm not perfect. Trust me, my wife helps remind me of that every day. But I certainly welcome any areas that you think that I need to improve on. Please, I hope you feel comfortable sharing those with me, because I will take those in stride, and because I want to do a great job. Because just like you all, I love Elizabethton. So that's first and foremost that, and our children, which are our most prized resource. So,
Okay. Thank you. And thank you all for taking time to fill that out as well. Next item is to approve Elizabethton City School Board of Education Resolution 0001-2024 in support of City of Elizabethton's application for the 2024 Tennessee Department of Transportation's Multi-Model Access Grant. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A motion and a second?
Second.
And a second, okay. Explanation?
yeah, absolutely. So the planning department reached out to me and asked if the board would consider passing this resolution in support of this project. And basically what it is a sidewalk project. They're trying to secure a grant to install a sidewalk on the north side of Elk Avenue that would run from basically Sycamore Shoals State Park down to the Bimberg Road intersection, right across from the high school. There's been some comments about the Tweetsie Trail being on the south side on the schools, but I also know that when we have events at the high school, like football games, where people may, I don't know, maybe eat at Applebee's and they just decide to walk over, having improved crosswalks and a sidewalk on the north side, I can't think of anything that would make pedestrian travel in that area any better. So I would encourage you to support this. I don't know if Mr. Simmerly has an opinion, if he wants to share anything about that from the city side, but certainly my thought is if they can secure a grant to do that and our support would help them, I just think that's positive for the school system and the community.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is that the Planning Commission had let's just say they decided not to vote on it and they pushed it to council. And we did vote it at council, and the bottom line was the math. Anytime that you can get a grant, we look at it, it's just numbers, but we look at it if we can get a grant and it's 20% or less matching, same as the school board does, you know, you want to grab the money. Well, this was a 5% match. On a $1.2 million grant, that was about $62,500 the city had to match with. Based on that, it was not really much of a decision. Planning didn't really, you know, they just didn't want to make a decision on it. They thought, you know, and I understand, you know, what they decided. I understand that. But again, it's the biggest thing we looked at too is safety. There's only one crossing currently on Elk, and it's down at the hospital. We do need at least another crossing, and we all agree it's not going to be a safe crossing. But by the time TDOT puts all their flashing lights and everything on it, hopefully it will be safe, at least if anyone needs to cross the road. So we're looking at that. But if you've got any questions on that, that was pretty much in a nutshell what, you know, what we looked at here, you know, when we had our meeting here last week.
Yeah. Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions for Mr. Simmerly? Thank you all for taking the lead on that, so.
And again, it's just an grant application.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the money yet.
Gotcha.
We've been hitting pretty good though on grants.
Okay. All right. So again, the item is to approve Elizabethton City Schools Board of Education Resolution 000001-2024 in support of the City of Elizabethton's application for the 2024 Tennessee Department of Transportation's Multimodal Access Grant. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And there are none. Next item. Approve the purchase of additional door locks and spare locks from Central Technologies for the amount of $59,964.28. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
So move. And a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you, Mr. O'Quinn.
So this is in partnership, I referenced this earlier in my comments. So this is part of the Central Technologies project where they're installing these door locks on all the internal doors in the school system. So part of that grant, as Mr. Simmerly just mentioned, there is a local match. And so we've been able to put that together, but we need roughly around another $60,000 of local funds to match this grant. And so that's essentially what these items are. It allowed us to expand and include a few more doors that we didn't think we were going to have the money to do, as well as, again, give us a supply of these door locks in case one fails. We're not going to be out a situation where we're waiting, you know, weeks maybe for a service technician to come. Our staff can in turn just change those out. So that's in essence what this is, and that will be paid for out of the fund balance.
Okay. Questions or comments, anything? All right. Item is to approve the purchase of additional door locks and spare locks from Central Technologies for the amount of $59,964.28. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. All right. Next item. Approve the purchase of Chromebooks through the Chromebook replacement cycle in the amount of $149,994.46. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
A motion and a second?
Second.
And a second, thank you. All right.
Okay, so as it states there, this is our annual Chromebook replacement. Obviously, with our ESSER grants, it allowed us to be one-to-one, so that means we have a Chromebook device for every student in the system. Now, whether or not it's age appropriate for them to take that home, but we have a device for every single student. So we use our ESSER dollars for that, and now we're to the point to where as some of those age out, break, things like that, this is the annual recycling plan that we've put in place. And if you notice, it's right at $150,000, which is what we have set aside annually for that. So now this should keep us from being in a situation where we have, 60% of our Chromebooks that we have to replace in a year. This puts it on a schedule that makes it more affordable to do over time. So again, it's a cycle that will be in place that will allow us to keep those devices new and current for the students.
Okay. And those have been used well. I mean, from the way I understand, they're
Yes.
still not just through the remote. They become an integral
Yes.
part of what teachers are using.
Absolutely, and I will tell you that the majority that we're replacing aren't necessarily the ones that we purchased with ESSER dollars. It's ones that we had within the system prior to
Already.
that. So
Gotcha.
those are, the majority of the ones that we have, that we purchased with ESSER dollars are still functioning.
Okay. All right. Questions? All right. The items to approve the purchase of Chromebooks through the Chromebook replacement cycle in the amount of $149,994.46. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item, approve the addition of an assistant cross-country coach at Elizabethton High School. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
So move, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Phil. All right.
So this item was brought, there's, in the documentation there, you'll see an email from Coach Holt in talking with the cross-country coaches. Their numbers of participation are up. And one thing of concern, if you remember a few years ago, we had one cross-country coach. And we had a couple of concerns with students running in the neighborhoods and felt like we needed some additional staff to help monitor those students as they run through town. And now it's grown to the size to where we need some additional support. So we would have 2 assistant coaches and 1 head coach. And again, this will allow them to spread out across the community when they're running through town. And so we think it will really benefit the program to do that. And we will continue to watch student numbers on this one as others that you've approved in the past. If participation numbers drop and don't justify the 3rd coach or the 2nd assistant, then we won't fill that the following year. So.
It is, I know the interest is at a peak a little bit. I mean, first, they've got quality people, you know, in charge there. So you're always just an athlete or 2 away from being at that elite level,
Yes.
maybe in the state, the ones that want to work. So, okay, any other comments or questions? Items to approve the addition of an assistant cross-country coach at Elizabethton High School. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And any opposed? None. The motion carries. Now, all right, so we're here on just a large number of board policies. I will read them all just to have them on the record, and then we'll let Mr. Van Huss give the change or whatever the reason for something new. And again, if there's something you're concerned about, not ready to vote on, you can let us know at that time, but we will make one vote at the end to cover everything that everybody is okay with. All right? So, approve first reading of proposed board policies. 1.501, visitors to the schools. 1.800, the school calendar. 2.403, surplus property sale. 2.806, bids and quotations. 3.202, emergency preparedness plan. 3.205, security. 3.400, student transportation management. 4.201, class size ratios. 4.213, family life education. 4.214, use of artificial intelligence programs. 4.301, interscholastic athletics. 4.403, library materials. 4.600, grading system. 4.603, promotions and retention. 4.307, physical assault leave. 5.701, substitute teachers. 5.802, qualifications and duties of the director of schools. 6.2001, attendance during post-secondary visits. 6.203, school admissions. 6.300, code of conduct. 6.309, zero tolerance offenses. 6.316, suspension. 6.318, admission of suspended or expelled students. 6.409, reporting child abuse. And 6.4052, opioid antagonist. All right.
Repeat those.
Yes. Can I get a motion to?
Motion to approve.
To approve, all right, and a second. Okay, so now, the explanation.
Yes.
And you're off.
All right. And so again, you have a copy of these in your board packet, but I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to identify where this changed, or some of the policies are brand new. We've never had those before. And some are more wholesale changes to the policy from the original. So we'll go ahead and get started. So in policy 1.501, visitors to schools, there's a new requirement in code that requires school systems to come up with a visitor code of conduct. So that's basically what this policy does. It requires boards to adopt a code of conduct for each school in the district. This code must be placed where visitors can see it and must also contain the name and the board of professional responsibility number of the attorney who reviewed it. So we're in the process of working on that code. So the policy that you're putting in place today just governs that code. We're in the process of working with Ms. Owen to get that policy in place, or that code in place. Once we do that, in the July meeting, you'll be approving that code. There are some reporting responsibilities on our part. We have to hand a printed copy to every parent and get acknowledgement from them that they've received that. That's going to be a challenge, certainly at the middle school and junior high level. Elementary is probably a little bit easier, but so we're already looking at ways that we can accomplish that. We also have to give a copy to every school employee. We also have to post it at every entrance to our school buildings. And so we'll try to do that with athletic facilities as well. So this will govern any visitor to the school, whether it's for an academic reason or possibly for a sporting event or something like that. So there'll be more to come on that. Again, you will have a chance to look and weigh in on the actual code itself next month. So that's visitors to the schools. So policy one, any questions on that one so far?
And again, this is all new, we've just been notified,
Yes.
so this is all new coming down the pipe.
Yeah, these are all these changes are a result of the recent legislative session that finished up, and it takes TSBA a while to take that, synthesize it, and then send out policy recommendations, changes and recommendations.
That's a logistical nightmare to get all those back.
Yes, it is. And we could have waited some of these to July, but why wait if we can go ahead and get those on? Some of them we couldn't wait. Some things in here talk about a July 1st date that is going to be difficult to meet anyway. If there's one of these that you have a question about, please just feel free to just jump in there and let me know. If not, I'm going to keep on rolling. So on 1.800, the school calendar, the only change here is on page 1, line 12. It adds that you can't have school on presidential primary elections. We do that. We've been doing that already for any election cycle because 4 of our 5 schools are polling sites. So just like this year, August 1st is primary. However, that's not a problem because we don't have students. We will have staff, but they'll have access to the building to be able to vote. So that's the only change on that one. And some of you, if you may have a copy that it was in your agenda, it was listed as 1.801, but in fact it's 1.800 as Mr. Pless mentioned. So I just wanted to make sure if that was incorrect on yours. Next on policy 2.403, surplus property sales, and policy 2.806, bids and quotations. Both of these require now that when we publish either a bid or a quotation or we have surplus property, we have to basically make notice of that on it's required to be placed on a news and information website. So it can't just be as in the past, just in a newspaper printed in the local area. So there's other qualifications to that. And the big part is, again, that they have a website and there's all of these requirements that it's updated at least 3 times a week and things like that. So we're looking at the different options we have here within Elizabethton and the Carter County area to meet that requirement. But again, in these 2 policies, it just lists that is now a requirement for surplus materials and bids and quotations. On 3.202, emergency preparedness plan, on page 1, lines 20 through 22, it states that this tells how staff will determine that staff will have to now determine the cause of a fire alarm activation, including the potential for an active shooter event. So in other words, if a fire alarm is pulled, we're now going to have a procedure in place to make sure that that wasn't maybe someone that had ill intentions to pull a fire alarm, so everyone would evacuate and maybe try to do harm to our students. So a part of this policy is that we have to work with the local fire department and the police department to come up with what our procedure is going to look like here within the district. So Dr. Boatman is helping us work on that with that procedure, and we'll be reaching out to Chief Shaw as well as Chief Carrier soon to figure out. We're also trying to gather some information. Evidently, there's a district or two across the state that already do have a process in place for this. So we're going to be reaching out to them to try to get some additional information on that. But again, in the policy, it just states that we're required to have that procedure in place. And that will also be part of the school and district emergency plans. So it'll all be in those plans as well. On policy 3.205, security, page 1, lines 25 through 30, it requires teachers to report to administrators if there's assaults or certain acts of vandalism on school property. And they're to report that to the principals, and then the principals must report that to local law enforcement and the director of schools. And that's something that, again, is just going to be spelled out in this policy, but there's already great communication between staff, administrators, and this office, so it just adds that layer in there. But again, a situation like that, what normally happens is they would let me know that happened, and they would talk with the SRO. So that's already occurring.
And you send that monthly report. Is that part of what would go on that report, some of these items?
Potentially, certainly
Okay.
it could be. It certainly could be. If it were a situation where it were a student and we were looking at maybe some other type of disciplinary action, so yes,
Okay.
this could certainly be something that would show up on that report. Any other comments or questions? Policy 3.400, student transportation management. On page 1, there are 2 changes, lines 5 through 7 and 14 through 23. This new state law requires boards to issue certificates to bus drivers. And it requires also that notices be posted on buses stating that only authorized individuals may enter. So we'll be posting stickers on all the buses that will inform individuals that they're not allowed to step onto a school bus unless they're authorized personnel. If you notice the first part I mentioned, the state Department of Education and Department of Safety, they've now pushed down bus driver certification to you, the board, across the state. So we're in the process now of working through that process and what that certification is going to look like. Our plan is it will look very similar to what the state has been requiring for certification. In other words, a physical, verify that their license is still valid, different things like that. So we'll have some other information for you in July on some more details around that. Mr. Hutchins and Dr. Hobson are working on that on the transportation side. So I'll share more with you on that again in July. 4.201, class size ratios. On page 1, lines 7 through 9. This modifies class size requirements to allow greater flexibility in career and technical education classes for grades 6 through 8. So essentially, in middle school, CTE courses, they now can meet the same class size requirements as a gen ed classroom. Whereas those are limited to basically 20 students apiece. This opens that up a little bit. We've already had discussions internally that it's certainly not our intention to take those courses and just try to fill them up like we would any other class. But what it does provide us with is the flexibility. If we have a class that needs to be 25, it allows us to be able to do that. So our intention will continue to be to try to hold as close to that 20 average as we possibly can.
Do you anticipate a problem with equipment and things of that nature, materials?
Well, I think that's the real challenge with those classes, because it is so hands-on. If the class becomes too large, you either have to have more items because you can't rotate all the kids through those areas. So that's a great point. That could require require more of a capital investment on our part if we extend those classes, make those classes too large. Absolutely. 4.213, family life curriculum. This requires that information on internet crimes against children be incorporated in this instruction, and that the name of the instructor being reported, that has to be reported to the Department of Children's Services, DCS. And it requires that the family life curriculum it has to cover human growth, human development, or human sexuality, and it must include a video of fetal development. So it has to include a video that shows kind of what the process is from a child, from the embryo as it develops the different organs and things like that. That's a requirement. So you have to report who's teaching that, as well as ensure that that video is shared. Dr. Newman and Ms. Isaacs, our coordinated school health director, will be working on that and lining that up. We talked with today, the majority of that material is provided by the health department here in Carter County, so we'll be working with them as well to line all that up. Okay. Next, 4.214, use of artificial intelligence programs. This is a brand new policy to the district, as obviously artificial intelligence, AI, is new, and I'm afraid this is going to be one of those things that as soon as we have a policy in place, it's going to be outdated, because the nature of that technology continues to grow by the minute. So I would tell you, I would expect lots of changes in this throughout the school year as we try to get a policy in place that addresses all the components of this. What's in place in this policy talks about staff use of artificial intelligence as well as students, and some reporting of what AI programs we may be using in the district, reporting that out to stakeholders. So we're trying to put all that in place. At this point, I don't think there's many of those programs that we're exclusively using across the system. I think what's happening, obviously students know about it and students are using it. So it's our responsibility to help them understand appropriate use of that, how it can be a tool. It can be a positive tool. I've used it for things, but it can't be the be-all, end-all. In other words, it can't generate something, and I can't claim that as original work and expect that to be acceptable. That's just not. And you have to understand whatever the subject may be. You have to have some background knowledge and understanding of that, because sometimes it will generate things that just aren't accurate, quite frankly. So you can't guarantee that everything that comes out of AI is accurate. So helping students as well as staff understand those things, that it's a great tool. It's almost like what I would call it is like maybe a rough draft of something. And then, we've got to teach responsible usage to take that and then craft that and make it your own, and take out those things that aren't accurate and add things that you have reference from. So, questions on that one? 4.301, interscholastic athletics. On page 2, lines 16 through 20. Homeschool students will be able to participate in interscholastic athletics in schools that are not members of TSSAA or TMSAA. So this just broadens out the ability for homeschool students to participate. There are some schools across the state that may be in a private school or in another type of organization outside of TSSAA, and some don't function at all within that. So this just broadens that out to include all. TSSAA and TMSAA, they have a procedure in place for those students to be considered for a team, just like any other member of the school. Questions on that one? 4.403, library materials. On page 1, lines 23 and 24. These changes to state law establish standards for immediate removal of material if it contains content defined in Tennessee Code 39-17-901. Things like nudity, sexual excitement, sexual conduct, excessive violence, and things like that. if the board, and then there's another portion of this that's new, if the board does not take action on feedback within 60 days, the person that brought the information to light may appeal to the State Textbook and Instructional Methods Quality Commission to evaluate. So that tells me that maybe there were some places that people were bringing these concerns and maybe boards weren't acting within the 60-day time frame. So this now puts in statute that they have a remedy to just jump the school board and go straight to the State Textbook Committee if there are issues with that.
Would you comment on if had there been a referral or a concern with that?
Yes, I'm not aware of anything, any principals, do y'all remember anyone questioning anything in the last few years from the library? Yeah, I don't remember anything either, so. Policy 4.600, grading system, 2 changes here, both on page 2, lines 5 through 9 and 22 through 25. The first one removes the minimum grade of 50 that we had in place, especially at the secondary level. The reason we had that in place before was just to try to, if a student struggled maybe one semester, it put them in a position to where they still had hope that they could get the credit. State law now prohibits anything above a 0 being a minimum grade, so that language has been removed. On a positive note, dual enrollment rigor points have been increased from 4 points to 5 points. So the state is trying to encourage students to get involved in dual enrollment in those opportunities that they have. And so, in other words, you take a dual enrollment class, since it's a college level course, let's say you have an 85. Well, you then in turn, at the school level, they would add 5 rigor points to that, so that grade would turn into a 90. So it encourages students to step out there, get that, take that opportunity to get out of your comfort zone and take a college course, but at the same time rewarding you for your willingness to do that. Questions on that one? 4.603, promotion and retention. 2 changes here. On page 1, lines 30, 31, and then on page 2, the first 3 lines talks about voluntary retention. So it's now in state law that parents of students in kindergarten through 2nd grade may voluntarily request that their student be retained if the student has a documented academic or behavior delay, and that the parent or guardian believes retention may benefit the student. So we're still seeking guidance from the State Department about what is that documented academic or behavior delay. What is that, defined as? So we need that information, but that will now be part of this policy. And then the second part deals with 4th grade promotion, and this was an extreme positive to us that State Board helped work through here as well. So if we had the way the original statute was last year, if a student was promoted to 4th grade, if they didn't show adequate growth this current school year, the 23-24 school year, if they didn't demonstrate adequate growth, then they would have to be retained in 4th grade. This now adds another layer in there. If a student does not show adequate growth in 4th grade, we can now form a committee. It's made up of parents, the principal, and the teacher, so 3 entities. And they each get essentially a vote. So it's a vote of 3, so they need a 2/3 to either approve or deny whether or not that student needs to be promoted. So if 2 out of the 3 of those groups say, yes, this student needs to be promoted to 5th grade, the only requirement at that point is that they have tutoring that entire 5th grade year, which we already have in place, the TN All-Core tutoring we've been doing for several years. So this at least gives those students an avenue that it's not just all focused on, did you make enough growth from this state test to this state test? It allows people in the room that know the child to meet and come up with a resolution or a conclusion on what's best for the student. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
I have one question. Is there, in all your meetings and things of this nature, has there ever been a focus on COVID and the effects of that? I have one grandchild who had COVID twice and things of that nature, and she was retained because her mama wanted to have her. But I'm just saying, there's no statistics that relate to COVID and kids being left behind?
I haven't seen that. Obviously, test scores dropped during that time frame, certainly when we were out of school for 3 months. But I think that a lot of the hard work that our teachers and staff have done and things we put in place have certainly minimized that, but it certainly took us, you know, a year or two to get back to at least those pre-pandemic levels. But I think we're continuing to see the results of that lost instructional time and just all the things that were involved in, you know, throughout that whole experience. So, but again, great work by our staff that have minimized that as much as possible. But again, it's going to take years to get that, you know, completely move beyond that. So, okay, that's promotion and retention. So next policy, 5.307, physical assault leave. This policy was put in place, I think last year, that any teacher that we have that's a victim of this, of an assault or a violent criminal act while they were fulfilling their employment duties, it would guarantee their pay and all their benefits and things like that to continue. It wouldn't impact their sick leave time and things like that. This new law extends that to all school employees, so this is a great thing. So if we have any employee that's a victim of one of those things while they're performing their work duties, all of that would be covered. And in speaking with Miss Wilson, we would have done that anyway. But this just puts it in place, and it's a great protection for staff members to put them at ease, and hopefully we never have to use that. But anyway, it's in place now. Policy 5.701, substitute teachers, page 2, lines 10 and 11. This requires substitute teachers to receive annual school safety training, just like any other employee we have in the system. So we require certain things: AED, first aid, child exploitation training, all those type things. Things that involve our safety plans at the school, they now have to be involved in all of that training as well. So that's a good thing as well. The real challenge for us is to find a way to manage and make all that happen. You know, certainly getting those individuals in. I think what it will come down to is they'll have this training that they have to complete, and if they don't complete it, then they won't be able to sub. So it would be, I mean, the bottom line is it's something we require, so it's something we'll have to compensate them for the time that it will take to do that. So we're still trying to work through the logistics on how to best implement that as well.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
As it relates to, all teacher aides, secretaries, and clerks are approved substitute teachers for use in emergency situations.
Mm-hmm.
And as principals, we know lots of times you have to cover and things of that nature,
Yeah.
but you're saying they're trained, but they're approved to do that. We got a lot of criticism because when you're covering.
Yeah, and it's just gotten worse since COVID. I mean, principals will tell you how hard it is. There's still days where they don't have the subs. They're pulling people from everywhere, including teachers in planning. And we've tried to find ways to compensate
That's
them
real
as
popular,
much.
isn't
It
it?
is. It's real popular. So, but again, it's better than it was, but it's still not back to where it needs to be. Policy 5.802, qualifications and duty of the director of schools. This is on page 3, lines 4 through 12. It requires that a report be made if an educator has pleaded guilty, nolo contender, to, or has been convicted or otherwise found guilty of certain offenses in another jurisdiction. So that requires that I report any personnel that we have in that situation. I have to report that to the state board. There's several things that are already in statute that require me to report to state board, and then this just expands that a bit. The one thing that's a challenge for us is, how do you know what happens in another jurisdiction? Mm-hmm. You know, maybe from a background check, but beyond that, you know, I'm not comfortable enough knowing that if that's going to encompass all of those things or not. So we're, again, trying to get our minds around how we can ensure that we're up to par on that as well. Questions on that one? 6.2001, attendance during post-secondary visits. This was a request from Dr. Minton at the high school that we expand the number of college visits that a student would be exempt, or basically they'd be counted present at school, from 3 visits to 4 visits. Obviously those opportunities have expanded. There are a lot more opportunities to do that. There's a lot more involved when those students go on those visits. So Dr. Minton felt like it was important to try to expand that out to 4, that would be more manageable and would benefit the students to have that extra opportunity.
And that's spread over the entire year. It's not like during a semester or anything like that. It's just the year.
So, Board Policy 6.203, school admissions, and Policy 6.318, admission of suspended or expelled students. So this change is going to affect both of those policies. On 6.203, it's page 1, lines 18 through 20, and then on page 2, lines 22 through 33. And then on 6.318, it's on page 1, lines 4 through 9. While state law already requires parents to provide information to the school district if their student has been adjudicated delinquent for certain offenses, this public chapter clarifies that principals may specifically request this information from parents, and they're required to give that. So in the past, we haven't had the ability to really ask those type questions. Now we do, and parents are required to answer that. And I think there's actually a portion of that where it outlines what happens to the parents if they have that information and they don't share it. So it puts some teeth in that, because that's important information that, as all of you that are involved in education understand, it's important that we know everything as much as we can about the students in our buildings. Questions on that one? Getting close. 6.300, Code of Conduct. 2 changes here. Page 4, line 33, and page 5, lines 8 and 9. This requires that assaults on school property be immediately reported to local law enforcement and the director of schools. Again, that's something that our staff already does a good job of. Again, this just puts it as part of board policy because it's now required by state law. And the other change creates a separate category of assault for school discipline purposes. So for example, it is distinct from an aggravated assault or an assault that results in bodily injury. So now if you look at the Code of Conduct, there's plain assault, but you still have aggravated assault and assault that results in bodily injury. So you can have different levels. And basically this just provides more flexibility and disciplinary actions as a result, depending on what type of assault it is and what level it falls under. As you can tell, a lot of things dealing with safety of individuals and training, and that was a real focus in a lot of the activity by the legislature, as well as other activities. But we won't go into that. Policy 6.309, zero tolerance offenses, on page 1, lines 13 through 14. A threat assessment team will determine whether a threat of mass violence is valid before the offense can be classified as zero tolerance. I think the intention on this one is to make sure that a group of individuals are weighing in on that decision. It's not, just the principal's responsibility. If a kid, this is an extreme case, but let's say a kid brings a squirt gun and a principal says, well, you brought a gun, so you're going to be suspended. It's a zero tolerance, you're suspended for 180 days. The intention is this group to really look at that situation and make sure it is a valid threat, and that if that threat is severe enough that it would qualify as a zero tolerance offense. So I think that, again, our administrators have done a great job this year with threat assessment teams. We're looking at doing some additional training as well to broaden their ability to do that job and do it well, and the teams that they put together. But again, this just provides that extra set of eyes on that situation. And in the next policy, 6.316, it's kind of tied with this one as well. So let's say that you have a situation and they determine that it's not a zero tolerance offense. Well, in 6.316 suspension, it now allows for one of those invalid threats or a threat that wasn't determined to be zero tolerance, it still allows the principal to discipline that student if needed. So, in other words, they didn't want to put a situation if the threat assessment team says, oh no, it's not a zero tolerance offense. Well, it may not be, but it still may be something that needs to be dealt with on the discipline side. So this just tightens that up and gives the administrator more ability to react as needed.
One question.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what's in the handbooks for the middle school and the high school, but I've always been concerned with this, a student acting physically in self-defense and things of that nature. And what in essence do they say about someone who's physically attacked? Are they, at one time it was if you throw a punch, you're gone, and things of that nature. But we changed that. But has it stayed changed is the question?
It definitely has stayed changed. Now, if there's some way they can put some responsibility on both, they may both be disciplined. But if it's just someone walks up and sucker punches someone and then they clean the other one up, that's two different things.
Is that in the handbooks though? That's the question.
Well, I don't know the exact language either. Do any of y'all remember the exact language as it references that? Yes.
Yes. Or any discipline at all, in some cases. Okay. That's good. Absolutely. I don't mean to belabor that.
No.
I'm just saying, I sweated bullets over that for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. One other change in this policy, it states that if a student assaults an employee, the student can be suspended from attendance at school-sponsored activities for up to a year. So it
good.
puts specific language in there. If someone's, like a student assaults a teacher at the football game on Friday night, they can be suspended from those activities for up to a year. Policy 6.4052, opioid antagonist. Basically, this puts these medicines in the same category as an inhaler or an EpiPen, where a student can carry those on their person. And basically, this just basically states that we can't prohibit that as a school system from those individuals and visitors from carrying those on our persons while they're on campus. Questions on that one? Last one. 6.409, reporting child abuse. Districts are required to report the names of the child abuse coordinator and the alternate child abuse coordinator to the Department of Children's Services. So those are positions that we have in place. Now it's in code that we have to notify DCS who those individuals are. And I'm sure that's simply for a contact person. If there's a situation that they need to reach out to, they know exactly who to get in contact with. So, thank you for your patience. I apologize for how
And
long
I
that took.
apologize for asking so many questions, but
You should.
thank you. Am I at home?
It is a night like tonight's a reminder of what makes this profession, though, much more than anybody realizes, just the responsibility that you have as a board, as supervisors, administrative director, teachers, assistants, everything. So, all right. So, what I will do is I will just read the very first part, and I will not read every individual. We will lump those together. So, approve first reading of the proposed board policies Mr. Van Huss just discussed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? There are none. All right. Just a reminder that the board meeting next month will be held on Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. And again, we'll have a number of us will be at the Summer Law Institute So, again, any question about that? Anybody, I mean, I think all the arrangements, thank you, Ms. Walker, for taking care of that for us, and we'll get with our designated meal person with Mark Shaft to get everything set up for food.
And my Corvettes.
Yes,
Just wanna
yes.
Ask for a Corvette from my
Okay,
grandpa.
again, next regular scheduled meeting held on Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Have a good evening.
So, Gatlinburg, we go down